So we're going to take a moment now and look at color correction within Premiere. There are some different things I'll discuss in the process here of looking at how to color correct footage in Premiere. I've got 3 different clips. Some things you'll find will be more intuitive in other software programs like DaVinci Resolve or something like that. But you can accomplish everything that DaVinci Resolve does within Premiere. Sometimes you have to get a little bit more creative, and you just have to understand how to stack your effects within Premiere. So let's take a look at how to color correct in Premiere Pro. In this particular clip, I've got an interview a student did of me here, and you can see it's a little washed out. It's washed out. The black wall is kind of gray. My shirt is supposed to be black. It's kind of gray as well. I'm really not that washed out either. So let's get some color back in my face. And so I've got 2 clips here. I basically took this clip and cut it in half. So you've got 1 and 2. The reason I did this is just to show you basically there's in your effects controls palette you have got 2 things. You've got 2 tabs. The default one has motion, opacity, time remapping. You know, that's where you scale things up, change the position, and all of that. But then you have another one that says master and then the name of the clip. When you make an effect to the master, it applies to every instance of that clip within the sequence. For instance, if I was to real quickly go to curves and make an adjustment like that, now that's applied to the master. You can see in the timeline that there's a red line under the FX tool or the FX label. That means that there's an effect applied to the master. And you can see if I click over to this other clip, you can see, boom, it's there. And I can make an adjustment. You click on the master, there it is. Now if I delete that, and you can see I can jump back, that red line is no longer there, and it's gone. The difference, if I did it to the default, and I said, okay, I'm going to do the same adjustment, boom, boom, you can see there's no line underneath the FX icon or label. So when I click over to the first clip, that effect has gone away. There's nothing there. So you can see even right here in the Lumetri color, because that's the effect that I've got selected, you can see that actually change. Okay, so it's really important and intuitive to use the master tab in your effects controls for color correcting, because that way you can make adjustments to multiple versions of that clip or multiple pieces of that clip if you've used it multiple times through your project. So with that, let's take a look at this clip and see what we can do to fix it up. Let's see here. Okay. So first thing right off the bat, let's take a look at Lumetri scopes. You can see it's blown out. You can see my grays are kind of, or my darks are kind of high. So I'm going to go to the color wheels panel, and there's really nothing as far as white goes here to grab. So there might be a little bit of white on that button. Let's see what we can do to grab the white button. So I grab this first off in the white balance. I grab the color picker, and let's try to grab that white right there. I grabbed something. It changed a little bit. I saw this jump a little bit. And let's drop the exposure a little. That looks all right. Now, your skin tones, you generally want your skin tones to be floating between about 45–50% to somewhere between 75 and 80%. So right in this range, between 50 and 70, that's where you kind of want your skin tones to fall for the most part. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and go to I like using the color wheels because you can isolate your shadows, midtones, and highlights. Change, fix the color of them and your brightness of them. So let's go ahead and bring the shadows down just a little bit. Now, when you're working in Premiere, if for some reason you're making adjustments and you don't see this change and you're not seeing the change at all, just click off of your clip and then come right back on, and then it will update for you. And actually, before I go any further, I can see that my change is not being applied to the master clip. It's being applied to this clip by itself. You can see that that's not working the way I want it to. So how do I fix that? Well, simple. Go to my effects controls. I'm going to select that control. or that effect, excuse me, and hit Command C on a Mac, Control C on a PC for copy. Go back to my master, and then Command V or Control V to paste it. And there you go. So now that's on the master. You can see the effect. But make sure that you go back to your basic and delete that effect. Otherwise, it's gonna duplicate, and it's gonna look worse than what you want it. So again, make sure we're on our master. You can see the computer kind of glitched on me there and didn't do what I wanted it to do. That will happen. Okay, so now we're back at this. We're in our master. There we go. We're in our master. We've got that master effect. And let's go back to our Lumetri scopes. All right. So looking good so far. This could still come in. So let's go to bring our highlights down a little bit. We're not outside, so I'm going to ride the brightness at about 95. Midtones are pretty good. They're actually, you can see my midtones. There's a bit of green and blue right there in between the 60 and 70, 75 range there. So it looks like the color as far as my skin goes is right there where it needs to be. Looks good. So now the skin tone, it's pretty close. But let's see if we can clean that up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate that. So I'm going to go into my HSL secondary color, and I'm going to, I like working with the three color wheels, so I'm going to click, instead of singular, I'm going to click the 3 color wheels, again, shadows, midtones, highlights. And another thing I do is, now that I've got that, I'm going to go up to key. It's kind of like a color, it's really a color key is what it is, and we're going to select a color range. So let's start by using the first color picker tool and select a color. And let's see what we've selected by turning on the color gray. And you can see, okay, that's the color range that we've selected already. I'm going to use the color addition tool, the second one, and I'm just going to kind of hold that down, hold my left mouse button down and kind of drag around. And okay, that's pretty darn good right there. And let's blur this out. We can adjust these points to kind of isolate what we want. Okay, like so. And then we'll come down here and we'll blur it. Oh, what are you doing? There we go. No, it's not wanting to. My mouse is playing tricks on me this morning. There we go. And we'll blur that out. Maybe denoise it a little bit. Basically creating a matte is what we're doing. Okay, we'll go with this for now. And you can see even in the color, it's isolated. If I shut the color gray off, you can see more color comes back. I'm going to turn it on. We're going to isolate this much. And so now let's bring our midtones. They're a little red, so let's bring them over a little bit. And maybe bring the highlights down a little bit, like so. Looks good there. Let's bring some blue back into the shadows. That's pretty close. And even add some contrast if we want to. Looks good there. Looks pretty good. Let's shut that off, and now that's what we've got. So where did we start? Let's take a look. We'll go over to Effects Controls. We were here. This was the original clip, and now we're there. I look a little blue actually. You can see that my blue is high, so let's go back into that effect. You can see there's just a blue tint to my face, so we're going to pull some of the blue out, and I think that happened down here. So let's bring the blue back and the highlights. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, let's do that. That's where we were, that's where we are. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. Alright, so I think, you know, at this point I would leave this right here. It might be a little dark down here. You can see it's almost writing at the bottom, so you might jump back up to your color wheels and bring the darks up. You can see it's not doing anything, so let's jump back over. There we go. Now it's doing something. You could bring that up. Or if you wanted to, you could do that with the curves as well. Just bring the... But you can see that this is going to adjust everything. It's a broader brush stroke, if you will. So you might need to finesse that a little bit more. But that's not bad right there. And then from there we might add a little bit of saturation to bring in some more of the color and some more of the red like on my ear. And so that clip is actually pretty good. That's actually, I think that's looking pretty good right there. And you can see that it applied the effect to a multiple place. So we'll just command copy. There we go. And we'll come back here. There you go. So let's take a look now at color grading, see how we can color correct this clip. Again, this is a very blown out clip, so we may lose some detail here because it's really blown out. Someone didn't have a camera setting right. So let's see what we can do to color correct this. First off, let's look at our exposure. You can see it's way up there at the top, clipping for sure. So let's drop our exposure down to about 90. You can see we are going to lose data on this. There's nothing we can do about this. This was shot on a Canon T6, so it's not the most amazing quality, but it's still you can get some decent footage for what we're doing. So first thing I did was I dropped the exposure down to get it back within range, and then we'll go ahead and select white, just white from there. So it's pretty accurate. That's bright, stark white. Then let's drop the blacks down a little bit, the shadows. Has pulled down the saturation because it's oversaturated, and really with this clip, sad to say, that's about all we can do. This clip is unusable. Yeah, we can't use any of this. So let's go to this Blackmagic. Alright, so Blackmagic, generally they shoot flat. Let's see what we can do. First off, I'm going to apply an effect here. Okay, so let's look at this Blackmagic. It's generally very flat. We're getting some darks in the back there. We've got some peaking probably around these lights. Actually, it's these lights right here. You can see it's these bright lights in the back. So let's bring some of that color back to what it naturally looks like inside the Performing Arts Center. First thing I would do is let's find some color to make sure it's color corrected. So let's do the whites real quick. Just go white, select white and click it. And I'm not sure if it really changed much, but that's okay. Color wheels, let's bring up the shadows a little bit because it is a little dark. Let's bring up the midtones. And then bring the shadows back down. So it takes a little playing with that, with the brights. So just with those few changes, we've gone from that, something kind of dark, to something a bit brighter that we can actually look at. Let's bring some of the saturation in, so we can go back into our basic color, bring saturation up. And that's not really doing a whole lot to this clip, is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Again, if it doesn't work, just click off your clip, come right back, and it will update for you. That is pretty accurate. Looks a little green. Let's see what we can do about that green. So let's go to our color wheels, and that is probably right there in our midtones. You can see midtones and highlights are probably a little green, so let's leave some of the green there because we do have the wood texture or wood colors. Just pull the green out of the highlights a little bit. Yeah. That's pretty good right there. Bring the midtones down a little bit. Darks up a little bit. And that is pretty good. Now we could add some contrast if we wanted to, just by bringing this down. Bringing that up. Like so. But that looks pretty good right there. I would leave it, actually the blacks are kind of crushed. Just bring that up. There we go. And that looks pretty accurate to the Performing Arts Center. Our reds, you can see these people have red shirts on. Our reds are red. The seats are somewhat of a red or a wine color. Or they're like a deep red, so that looks good. These lights are not a full white light. They're more of like a halogen. So that's good, and these have that little bit of an orangish tint to the lights, so that's accurate there. Looks good, looks good. So I would keep this here, and then from here, we would add an effect. If we wanted to color grade, doing color grading will be in the next step, and we'll talk about color grading on the next video.